Hi, everyone. Thrilled to be here. We've got 30 minutes to cover maybe the revolution of a generation, so I'm not going to waste any time. Who am I? There I am with my lovely family. My name's Ben Davidson. I'm the IT manager at Emil Anderson Group, where, among other things, I'm responsible for staying on top of emerging technologies like generative AI. We kicked off GPT use in our organization around April when the API became available. We did what we call a lunch and learn. And it was pretty well received, pretty well attended. There was lots of interest, but a lot's changed since then, and we expect to see it change a lot in the near future with things like Copilot coming out next week we'll talk about. So I agree completely with Satya here, the CEO of Microsoft. I think it might even be bigger than these revolutions, though, because in the early 80s, a lot of people weren't sure why you would have a PC in every home. In the early 90s, there were a lot of doubters about the web. I myself was kind of late getting a cell phone in the 2000s, and I still feel a little behind on cloud. But I think everyone appreciates the immediacy, the urgency of what's happening today with AI. It could be even bigger than these. Just in case we're not all on the same page, just quickly, what is ChatGPT? It's probably the thing that got you through the door today, but it's text messaging with an expert on whatever you want at like 500 words a minute. It's unlike anything we've seen before. It's like talking to a person more than it's like talking to a computer. You can over-explain and give examples. It'll make good use of it, not like a Google search that's nice and short, right? You can under-explain and have it infer and make guesses, and it'll work with you a lot like talking to just an expert in the field, not one that's at their desk with all their tools and their traditional computing power and research libraries and whatever, but like cornering an expert in an elevator and getting their take on something, say. I think of it a little bit like that. But don't get too hung up on ChatGPT, because I really don't think it's long for this world. It is the underlying technology, GPT, and some similar models alongside it that are where the future lies. There's going to be derivative products built on top of these. So what is GPT? Well, the G is for generative, as opposed to something that might just be, say, tagging images. This is a face, this is a person, this is a dog, whatever, or like probabilities and that sort of thing. It's producing new content, new text, but also new images, or all kinds of other formats we'll talk about. This is where the real story lies. It's the first time we've had a general purpose pre-trained model just ready to go. Anyone in the world, it's a great equalizer. Off the shelf, just go and use it. You don't need to collect 100,000 data points and hand categorize them and pipe them through a supercomputer and thousands of dollars later have your model that can do something like screen cancer, say, and say you got an 82% chance here or not. This is, you can go up to it and say, look, I feel a golf ball sized lump, and it's not going to say, damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a sportscaster, what's a golf ball? It knows about everything, just out of the box, ready to go. And that makes it more powerful than even some of the specially trained models in some aspects. Transformer is really just technical jargon, a new model for training AIs that Google pioneered a few years ago. It has been rushed to market by a few companies. OpenAI, backed largely by Microsoft, is the one bringing us GPT. Meanwhile, Google is kind of scrambling now to catch up a little bit. So how good is it? Well, it's in the top quartile across the gamut of human experience. These are like college-level exams, standard tests. We're talking law, sciences, arts, humanities, all of it, and it's doing great. What might surprise you is programming at the very bottom there. The one thing you'd think it would be good at, which makes me happy because I struggle with programming all the time. But I promise you, it is still immensely useful even there where it struggles the most. So how did this happen? Because we thought we would have self-driving cars by now, right? We've been talking about that for a decade, and GPT just got dropped on our lap. No one was talking about it. This is not the beginning of like a new exponential curve. This has been coming for a while. You can think of it like in the image space. We started with being able to age up or down, and then you could gender swap, and then we could deep fake. Now we can generate images that do anything. Same here. We had early GPT models, 1, 2, 3. They could produce mostly English, but it just wasn't particularly useful or insightful or interesting. We've hit critical mass. Now it finally is worth your time. It's mostly useful most of the time. Something like autopilot, it was really an ambitious goal, right? This is life or death, split-second decisions. It's highly regulated. And if it's not perfect, it's not all that exciting. We've made some incremental improvements, lane keep assist and stuff, but until you can drink and get a safe ride home, it's not there yet. This is there. Microsoft is calling their integrations with GPT that they're putting into Office Copilot. I think it's the perfect analogy. This is not going to do everything for you, but it's going to be mostly helpful most of the time. I mentioned images earlier. That is the Midjourney AI. In practice, about 20 seconds it took to spit this out. The prompt was just Chilliwack. And it's pretty darn good. It's taken some creative liberties. If you look at those train tracks very closely, you're going to see that really needs some work. It's not actually going to get you anywhere. But it speeds up the process, right? Like you can get your creative juices flowing, you can get first revisions out there, see what works, and then maybe pass it off to an expert to put on the finishing touches or fully realize the dream. We also have all kinds of innovations in this space to this day. It's continuing to get better. Eventually it'll get those train tracks right. We've got GPT with vision now, where it can see an image and say, there's Waldo, or solve your IQ test problem, or read your error message. Won't be long before it can just drive your PC. This stuff is changing all the time. Here it is coming to Office now. This is November 1st, they say Copilot for 365 is going to launch, and it's a paid product. Don't get too excited, but you're going to be able to just in text say, hey, read this Word document, understand the context, and make me a PowerPoint, right? It's sourcing images from, say, a Teams well, not images from a Teams transcript, but from all your Office files, OneNote, whatever, and you can then say, hey, this is too wordy, refine it, add a slide about this or that, all dynamically in plain text. So everyone is rushing to bring this to market. It's coming across the board. I mentioned 365. Ready your wallets. They're saying $30 US per user per month. It'll probably double your 365 bill if you're in that space, but probably it's going to be worth it. You can imagine how it would work in Word or Excel, or Word or Outlook, but in Excel you're going to be able to get help with formulas. You're going to be able to produce new charts and graphs and things easily. We've struggled to get Power BI off the ground. The promise is you're just going to be able to say, here are my business data sets. These are the problems I'm trying to solve. Build out whole dashboards for me in seconds. Teams, skip the meeting. Just get a roll-up of all the action items, points of contention, to-do lists, citing transcripts to get an idea of who actually said what easily, efficiently. Search in SharePoint is going to get dangerously good, so get your permissions in order, because you will literally be able to say, find me all the credit card numbers, passwords, lawsuits, termination letters, any juicy gossip you can find, and expect an answer. We're going to have integration into Windows. Windows 11 is going to have this icon in the bottom in the taskbar. If it's not there already, it's coming soon. And that's basically going to launch Bing Chat, which might be the easiest way to get access to these technologies today, which is basically ChatGPT plus supplemented live search results. It all started with coding. You had GitHub Copilot a couple years ago for Visual Studio Code. I've been using it. It's game-changing for that. Now we got tools like Figma for graphical design of apps are going to spit out code to back those. I think one of the biggest spaces, I'm no expert here, but it might be AutoCAD. Imagine being able to describe all your material and design and safety constraints, use cases, and it spits out not an image, but a real model you can start working with. Google doing everything Microsoft is doing, bringing it to search, bringing it to Google Workspace, their equivalent of Office, right? Adobe, you've got Photoshop. So not just images, but individual layers you can then manipulate and tune, a lot more versatile for an artist. Or Illustrator, getting actual lines and curves, understanding every detail of what makes up a shape. Premiere, cutting together your rough cuts of videos. You pass it multiple feeds, it'll give you your podcast A/B or action movie or whatever. After Effects, now we're getting into video generation, not just images. Their competition too, DaVinci Resolve, they're bringing stuff to market as well. So obviously this is a huge deal. Goldman Sachs predicts $7 trillion impact to the global economy within a decade annually, and impacting 2/3 of US jobs. McKinsey's right in line with them. Accenture's just a little more modest, but they also say 98% of companies are going to be using it within the next 5 years. And it's believable because the uptake on this is unprecedented. It took 5 days to hit 1 million users. They were at 100 million users within a quarter. This is compared to like 90 days for Instagram or a year for Facebook. If you're a company of any appreciable size, somebody's using these tools, whether you know it or not, and almost everybody thinks we should be using these tools often or more. This is going to hit everything. Young people, no surprise, are adopting it faster than anyone else. If you're in college or high school even today, I guarantee you, you're using these tools. Everybody's using them, and if you're not in your business, these new generations are going to come in and it's going to be like you're using a calculator while people around you are suddenly using Excel. So yeah, don't miss this one. Of course, it's going to unsettle some things. We're not really sure how much. Some people think there'll be some growth, some new opportunities. More people think there'll be a decline, but I don't honestly buy that. I think that's more of an imagination problem. Easy to imagine where we're going to create the efficiencies. A little harder to imagine where we create the opportunities, but I think it's coming. I think if I tell you I'm going to give you a tool that's going to make you more powerful, more dynamic, more efficient than ever before, you can either hang on for dear life, shrivel up to the smallest possible size and watch the world change around you, or you can seize the day and do something new and exciting. I think that's coming. But sure, it's going to change some industries. This is comparing physicians to GPT. This is on Reddit, so it's like a message board context. The physicians get a pass for not giving it their all here. But you got the chatbot there. It's good to very good on quality, moderate to very empathetic. Like, this is an amazing second opinion, if nothing else, while you're waiting in the ER, waiting for a prescription, wondering if you should go in the first place. I've used it for that. Definitely there's dangers, there's caveats, but the temptation is just too great. On the creative front, the Writers Guild was on strike for 148 days, and one of their big concerns was that AI was going to make their jobs a lot drier, or they're just vetting bad ideas all day. They got a win there for the next 30 months. They can't be compelled to use AI. We'll see what happens when they revisit the conversation then. On the visual front, this is using DALL-E 3, came out this month. This is the latest, greatest image generator, and for the first time, it basically went 10 for 10 on every detail I asked it for about the style of clothes, the look, the ethnicity, the hair, the office, the desk, the tools, everything, right? You do have some limitations here. You can't get it to say, do this exact same picture but put a tie on them. You're rolling the dice every time. You'll get a different guy in an almost similar environment. So there's still a need for perfect creative control to work with real artists, but boy, does this get you out the door faster. And it's not just pretty, it really feels grounded in reality, like it actually understands how this stuff might work when you get creative. This stuff just blows my mind the more you look at it. If a sloth lobster doesn't impress you though, maybe coding will. Here's a real prompt I gave it. I wanted it to take a bunch of photos and rename them based on the metadata in the photos. And I didn't over-explain myself. I didn't tell it how to come up with a unique ID. I didn't explain what the year, month, day thing means, right? I explained it as well as I would explain it to a person I wanted to do this, and it ran with it. Here's what it gave me. It didn't reinvent the wheel. It used a tool I never knew existed, but sure enough, it really does. And it says, go download it. If it doesn't, it quits. If it does, though, it reads all the picture information, and then for each picture, it runs the tool. It pulls all the information, it counts it, makes sure it's got all 8 pieces it's looking for there. If it does, create a unique ID, build a new name, rename it, say you renamed it. Otherwise, say, I'm skipping it because I couldn't get all the information. It could make mistakes. This actually works, but it's not always perfect, but it makes mistakes at about the same rate I do. It's dangerous to just run code you don't understand, but this is a great way to get started, maybe pass it on to a developer when you're not sure. Prototype, mock-up, it's fantastic for that, and I use it all the time for these purposes. This has had some serious impact in some industries. Shutterstock, that's stock photography. Of course, they were hit hard by generative AI. Stack Overflow, that is my wheelhouse, like system administration, software development, that sort of thing. They were cut in half. I expect Course Hero to get a bump back up with the fall here, but they were devastated by these. And the real irony is that these are the services that effectively trained their competition, right? These image generators and code generators and things were learning off of the data here. And now they are compelled to, if you can't beat them, join them, which makes for a better product. But yeah, they had to adapt fast to stay relevant. Now they're integrating these sort of tools into their services. Other companies are also in a bit of a panic. You got Twitter, X. They're charging $200 grand every month for access to 200 million tweets. It's the largest publicly available plan they're offering, but there's 500 million tweets every single day. So they decided they're sitting on a gold mine. The world's hot takes are actually worth something. It is actually how you keep a pulse on the latest and greatest everything and people's opinions and the rest of it all. Reddit, they had a third-party client called Apollo that had to shut down because they were projecting API costs around $1.7 million a month, all US, right? Then you've got sites like the New York Times, Chicago Tribune, Reuters, CNN. They're just saying you may not use our data for AI training in the terms of service under any conditions at any cost. But it's not the first time we've had technology shake things up, right? This is NASA's first computers, not the things on the desk, but the people behind them. There was a movie, Hidden Figures, about this a few years ago. Maybe you saw it. Technology has been better at things that humans used to do before, and I don't think the sky's falling here. So Goldman Sachs, they did a little analysis in response to generative AI last year, and they cited some data that said 60% of people in jobs today in the US are in roles that didn't exist in 1940. That kind of blew my mind, but I'm obviously one of them. Think of all the biggest companies on earth today, all tech companies. It's not that hard to believe the more you think about it. There's been revolutions like this before. A camera takes a perfect picture. What do you need art for when you just, in a moment, the way GPT just makes things in a moment? But no, we still have them. There's some role changes, but a lot of jobs have just evolved, right? You just add technology to a traditional role. Maybe I'm preaching to the choir here, but like take the oldest jobs in human history are now very tech enhanced, right? This has happened before. Yes, we have fewer farmers today, but the productivity goes up, so does supply, and so does demand. And we haven't seen massive labor slumps in response to these things before. So I'm optimistic about the future for almost everyone across the board here. And remember, it's not perfect. It makes mistakes. Don't know if anyone will catch this quickly. She has 3 feet. Hands are also notoriously bad. It's getting a lot better now, but even to this day, count the fingers. They often get it wrong. Or if the fingers have to interact with anything, it doesn't understand the mechanics there at all. And sometimes it makes mistakes that we would just never dream of, right? Whole new categories of errors to expect out of these things. Other problems too. The biggest one in my mind is its unwillingness to challenge you. It will hardly even ask you to provide clarifying information. It'll just run with whatever you gave it. If it's a bad idea, it's not going to tell you to your face typically. It's not going to say, don't do it. If it really can't, if you back it into a corner, then it hallucinates. It comes up with an answer that just isn't real at all. This is a very common problem, getting better, but still really, really common. Huge confidentiality issues. Don't pump your patent pending ideas into this to get feedback, because it might just be learning off of these models and learning off that information and then passing it on to the next guy that asks. So be careful there. Some models, they license differently, and this is less of a concern, but be wary. But you do have to give it information if you want anything truly insightful, because it knows nothing about your business or you without you telling it. And like GPT, its API, its data set is cut off January 2022 right now. That's the latest update. It knows nothing past that. So you have to feed it new information if you want to get new insights. When you ask for things, ask twice, you're going to get 2 different answers, which is really befuddling if you're used to a computer. Makes it really hard to say, I swear it told me this. And then when you try and explain your business decisions because GPT told me to, that's not good enough. You're going to have to actually ask for a rationale and vet it yourself and make sure you understand it, because you might get a different answer next time. It's outright bad at math, just really bad at it. It is ballparking every time. Sort of like how an expert mathematician might just ballpark. Again, if you don't have them in their office with all their tooling, you just corner them in the elevator and give some absurd equation, it'll ballpark. There's things like Wolfram Alpha is working on an integration that will allow us to defer to the traditional model, or the Excel integrations and things. There's ways maybe around this, but boy, you got to be careful. The output it gives you is not yours any more than it's anyone else's. This is especially prevalent with the image generation, the multimedia stuff. It's been ruled you're not going to copyright that. It is very careful whenever it's safety sensitive to say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a mechanic. Rightfully so. You can get it to play ball if you tell it, I'm just going to pass these questions on to my doctor, or the doctor gave me really bad advice, you sure you don't want to correct me? It might jump in, but that's a dangerous game to play. It'll hold back in other ways too. It's not going to tell you how to build a bomb or hide a body or that sort of thing. For better, I'm sure we all agree. And then there's bias, which I want to dive into a little bit more. Here's a real image I asked Midjourney to generate there. Simple oil painting of a 30-year-old female First Nations mechanic. Right there it is. You can imagine the objections people might have to misrepresentation here. Or, should we be trying to dress for the job we want, not the job we have, right? If I didn't specify, what should it have done? What percentage should be female or First Nations or whatever? These are not new questions, but I do think it's different to explicitly ask for it than it is to do a Google image search and just pick one from a representative sample, right? But then look at the next couple lines. clean white hard hat with an orientation sticker, it has a headlamp, it reflects the headlights. I went on and on about this hard hat because I couldn't get the damn AI to put a hard hat on a woman. You can imagine its data set tells you women are much less likely to wear hard hats, right? And that's the kind of subtle, insidious thing that if we're not looking out for it at some scale, I mean, that could cost lives, right? You're just making people think that it's okay, but men are going to be armored up. That's the kind of stuff that's going to be really tricky. We're just going to have to watch out. So you got these incredibly flawed tools, but they are incredibly powerful. What can you do with them? Everybody drafts documents with them as the first step. And it's natural, and it's a good use case. But of course, Google could find boilerplate templates before this. It's not entirely where the revolution lies. I think it's at least as impressive that it can summarize, consolidate data, give you insights about it, not just text, but like CSV data, for example, or Excel data right around the corner, right? Take an hour-long YouTube lecture and turn it into some Cliff Notes to study, that kind of thing. We did a customer satisfaction survey internally, and you can infer who said what by the writing style or they name drop, but you want an impartial summary of how the various departments are doing, right? Fantastic for that. It's excellent at deciphering complicated information. Sometimes it's a code sample, sometimes it's legal jargon. It's not perfect, but it gets you grounded, it gets you oriented, it gives you a sense of where you're at. It's also great at coming up with mnemonics to study from, helps you practice answering, practice speaking, evaluate you on whether you're rambling or getting confusing, that kind of thing. You get feedback. It's great for coming up with new ideas, slogans, or maybe logos on the image front. It's great for just dumping ideas on it and saying, I'm a little lost, but here's what I know. Are there themes? Are there trends? Am I missing something? I'm lost. Help me fill in the gaps. Have you ever sent an email to your boss, you're typing it, and it says, sorry, this just can't be done, and you're about to hit send, and you think, I should probably Google that first to make 100% sure. Wouldn't it be nice to never look like an idiot again? I want this built right into Word where it's like grammar check, wiggle, but fact check. You might want to just double check that line, right? I'm sure that's coming. I'll give you a real world example here. I was shopping around for clothes for my 2-year-old you saw on the first slide there. I was on Facebook Marketplace. There was somebody, they were advertising something. It was in French. They used a slang term and they made a typo. And Google had no idea what to make of it. But ChatGPT, it understood exactly what they were talking about. It meant it was waterproof. It's that kind of stuff that is just hard to understand without a general grasp of just about everything. It is making everything more accessible. It is a democratizer of information. Everybody has the same tools. They don't need special knowledge or insights to get access to this stuff. The internet is roughly 60% English, which means we get access to knowledge that maybe didn't exist in that other 40%. But imagine the people that speak a 5% language and have access to 95% more of the wealth of human knowledge, right? And it's so much less frustrating. You don't have pop-up ads, but also these days, GRPD notices and newsletter subscriptions and cookies and none of that stuff you have to box with to get to your answers. No paywalls turning you around. No opening 10 tabs and scrolling around trying to find the thing you need. It takes all the stress, or just about all of it, out of research and troubleshooting and problem solving. It is such a relief, frankly. I cannot imagine going back to Google. So with those things in mind, let's look at some end-to-end workflows that you might apply this on. And keep in mind, it might not be you developing these workflows. You're really probably looking at your line of business applications to bring these to the table, and I'm sure they're all racing to bring them to market. But let's just go through some scenarios. Recruitment. First of all, it's going to understand all the terminology that you don't, all the acronyms, all the transferable skills better than anything ever has before. It'll be really easy to find your promising candidates. It'll detect red flags that were previously hard to detect. Like, sure, it sees that there's a gap in the work history. Might also notice that it hasn't heard of half the companies on the resume. It might also say, I don't know, boss, it looks like they said they're proficient in Word, but they used 30 spaces to line up their text instead of changing the margin. Maybe double check that. Like, that stuff's hard to catch. When you're prepping for the interview, you can really cater it to the candidate where you're testing them on the skills they claim to have rather than the ones you were hoping for, but you're trying to meet in the middle on something. And then when you do meet in the middle and hire them, customize training to fill in just the gaps they need in a really simple way. Data analysis. It's great at just cleaning up data. If you have a blob of text and you say, get me a CSV file with address 1, 2, city, postal code, that sort of thing. It'll be great at scraping that out. It's great at filling in the gaps. Say you're missing a postal code, infer one from the city that's approximately right, or vice versa. Or if you're really not sure, the data seems out to lunch or something's weird, just drop the suspect data, or give me a whole training data set that's just from scratch fabricated. Give me rural Alberta retiree, typical names, household incomes, whatever metrics you'd be looking to evaluate against. Great for that. Customer service space. Imagine, somebody says they got a problem, they got an error message. What error message? People don't say it. Asking saves time, right? Did you try turning it off and on again? This sort of stuff. Then, okay, we're still stuck. Well, there's internal knowledge base, also supplement with web search results. Give them some good, reasonable next steps, just sort of thinking on the fly automatically. If you're still stuck, well, at least triage the tickets intelligently where it recognizes you're the CEO, you're probably getting bumped. Payroll's due tomorrow, you're probably getting bumped. That sort of stuff. And then monitor passively in the background. So when it turns out you were hit by the latest 0-day problem and Microsoft releases a patch next week, well, let the team know, I think maybe we're onto something here, right? Procurement. Doing all the stuff you might hope with monitoring vendor inventory online versus your consumption, projecting what needs to be ordered. Draft a PO, once it gets approved, actually submit the order, and then deal with all the easy questions you get. Are you open Saturdays? Do you have a forklift? How big is your bay door? Whatever. It will deal with those sorts of things. Or they say, sorry, can't do it. Well, follow up with the next vendor automatically. Don't let things fall through the cracks. These are the sorts of things that I hope we'll see coming to market all over the place in the near future. There are also uses, though, that aren't so savory. Of course, none of you are going to be doing this stuff, but there's going to be models that do tell you how to build a bomb, hide a body. I don't even need to tell you what they're going to do with the ones that can generate images. There's going to be a huge, just junk pile of clickbait ad revenue traps trying to just waste your time, worse than ever before. There's going to be people giving up credit card numbers for internet girlfriends that don't really exist. That's going to be a big one. These things could pass the Turing test. They really could fool you into thinking they're human if they wanted to. And then there's fake news, which is mostly annoying until it influences an election and changes the whole world, right? And it might be stuff like this. This is one of the first images that really went viral where a lot of people thought it was real because it's so benign, right? It doesn't really feel like it's got an angle. It's just the Pope's got a weird coat. It might be those sorts of things that we don't even notice are happening, right? Here's one I made on the other extreme. Maybe your uncle is going to fact check this a bit before he shares it on Facebook. Maybe not. I don't think anyone's holding that umbrella. Will he notice? I don't know. And it could get worse, right? There's some real concerns out there. One day someone's going to say, GPT, help me build a widget, and it's going to realize the best way to build widgets is to enslave humanity. I wish I knew what to tell you here. The truth is, this is only going to feel closer and closer to a possibility as the technology gets better. All I can say is I don't think using GPT today is going to accelerate it. So, I wouldn't hold back. We got nothing to lose, but yeah, real concerns. So what do I think your next step should be? Well, try it if you haven't already. Bing Chat's probably the easiest way to do that today. And I would be ready to tinker with this Copilot thing. So 365 Copilot, they say it's launching November 1st. I still can't buy a license today. I'm very eager to. The world could change next week. But also look to your line of business applications. Figure out what's coming and when. Talk to your vendors, that sort of thing. And then find team members within your organizations that actually use these tools, that can imagine the potential. Maybe look to those new hires that are using it right out of college that are going to see the potential better than anybody. Last thought, I didn't want to throw anyone at Amo Anderson under the bus, but we all have users like this, I promise. This is my mom's first Excel graph. I'm very proud of her. She made it last month by hand editing the borders of individual merged cells. This is somebody who had all the data. They had a vision for what the end product should be that is correct, and they had more than the drive needed to make it happen. They just didn't have the technical skills to do it the right way. So if you were under the impression this is a tool for power users in any way, I don't think it is. I think novices might even benefit more than the rest of us with this kind of stuff.
Ben, that was a fantastic presentation that I think hopefully gave everyone in the room a sense of what's possible if you haven't already had the opportunity to play yourself with some of the tools that are available. So what we'll do over the next little bit here, basically until Liana tells us to stop, is we'll talk a little bit more about the implications of AI for you as individuals, as business people, and for society more broadly. So I'll try to avoid doing this sort of the long introductions, and instead I'll throw to each of our two additional panelists. Ben, having already given a good overview of himself, maybe I'll go to Jason Lum first. I think everybody knows who you are, and some of them probably voted for you. But can you talk a little bit about what brought you to being interested in AI and what the applications are in your work, whether that be as a city councillor or your other work as well?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the intro, and thanks, Liana and Chamber, for inviting me. Liana first approached me, I'm going to say a month and a half or a couple months ago, and she said, "Hey, we're doing this panel on AI, and we're going to talk about all the benefits and perhaps some of the cautionary tales around it." And that's where my mind went to right away was, what are the legal implications or the challenges, sort of the ethical implications for AI. And immediately I was thinking with my local government hat on. Local governments, as you all know, are fairly risk adverse, and we have a lot of regulatory and legislative requirements that we have to meet and fulfill and ensure that we're fulfilling on a day-to-day basis. And so I started asking tons of questions about it, and I think that's how I ended up on this panel. So she basically roped me in and said, "Okay, you're going to be on the panel." But with my non-local government hat on, I mean, I used to work for Amar at Myriad, and the technology itself fascinates me. And its application both in the private and public sector and just in the world in our day-to-day. I think we've all been unknowingly using or benefiting from generative AI and chatbots, predictable text, that kind of stuff, and we may not have even realized it yet. So it's here. I think that obviously with ChatGPT, it kind of took off fairly rapidly, but yeah, so just excited to listen and hear more questions from folks, and I'm looking forward to participating. So thanks for having me.
Thanks so much, Jason. John, you've got a background in marketing and web building, but you also have an academic background in philosophy and ethics. And one of the reasons that you and I have often talked about AI is thinking about sort of the ethical implications of AI. Can you give people a little bit of background on yourself, both in terms of the commercial work you've done, but also some of the thinking that you've done around the ethical implications of AI?
For sure. Good afternoon, everybody. When it came to AI, when my first exposure to it was tools that there was a tool called Jasper that's used to be used a lot, and then since ChatGPT became public, I think they haven't been used as much, but we were using it in the marketing, copywriting, web design world, and I would go into marketing conferences and talk about hey, is anyone using AI? And all of a sudden it looked like everyone, like a record scratch, and then everyone looked at me like, how dare you bring this talk of this tool into our conference? And I thought, oh, okay, maybe the world isn't quite ready. So I would talk about it in hushed tones and dimly lit hallways and stuff. But it was just amazing because you could write stuff. I mean, all the stuff that Ben talked about. I mean, it's amazing to draft documents, create email campaigns, write a whole page of website copy, do some marketing. I mean, there's so many things that we were doing. And then all of a sudden, ChatGPT, November 30th last year, came out, and all of a sudden the dads at my kids' drop-off and pickup were all asking me about it. These are guys in unions and firemen and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, wow, what a difference that we went from don't you dare talk about it to everybody's all of a sudden talking about 100 million users in 2 months is astounding for a piece of software. So yeah, I mean, I'm a pragmatist as a small business owner, but then I had to figure out okay, is this actually ethical? Are we ripping off people? Are we using? I mean, I was also doing an MBA at the time, so I was wondering can I use this as a student? And the school didn't have any policies or anything. And so I really did wonder about the ethics of it, and yeah, I'd run a bunch of stuff through a plagiarism checker, and it came out 100% original. So I mean, that may be a concern with a lot of you. If I'm drafting an email to this person, has that same email already been written? Is that where it's getting it from, or whatnot. And so those are some of the questions that I had to wrestle with. And when I saw the 100% original, I thought, okay, this is functioning like a research assistant would do it. And so I was a research assistant when I was studying in England, and so some professor hired me, didn't really pay enough, but I worked for him, and I would just go do a whole bunch of research. I had to read articles from 1918 to 1921. It took me months to read every single article written from this particular paper, and then I just submitted it. Every time this name or this theme came up, and I'd give him a Word document. Well, that took 3 months. It could have been done in 3 seconds now. And so it's just, that's how I see it. It's a way for us to move faster. Now, the research assistant industry probably is going to be hurting, but I'm sure they'll find a job at Starbucks or something.
Well, let's talk about that question of who benefits. So at a macro level, when economists look at economic growth, one of the things they talk about is where do the benefits of economic growth accrue? Do they accrue to labor? Do they accrue to capital? Do they accrue to total factor productivity? Let's take that to a more direct workplace conversation. I was just talking with a guy at my table who was describing the experience of using ChatGPT in the workplace, and his coworkers thinking of that as cheating. So that's a really interesting fundamental question. If chatbots and other forms of AI can be used to do work more efficiently, the question of who captures the benefit becomes very real, very fast. Is it the worker that captures the benefit? Is it the employer that captures the benefit? Is it the customer that captures the benefit? What is the tension between those things? If you're an employer or a supervisor and you've got a subordinate who's using ChatGPT to do their work, should you fire them because they're lazy? Should you promote them because they're smart? What should you do? What are the implications? Let's start with Ben on this one.
Am I good here? Yeah. I accidentally bumped the button. Was worried I might have turned myself off. I do get that sense from people that as they innovate and find a new way to do something efficiently, they kind of want to keep it quiet. They don't want anyone to know it was that easy because maybe they're useless. But I mean, I'm sure most people in this room manage people, and when somebody says they are more efficient at something than you knew, you're not thinking, great, I don't need you anymore. You're thinking, what else should I be putting you on, right? I would be very encouraging of exploring those spaces. You just need to be careful of, all the legal concerns and make sure they understand the limitations and, the errors and all those things we talked about. I said earlier, a democratizer of information. Small companies, large companies, individuals, and leaders, they can all get access to the same data, get access to the same insights and opinions. I will totally just ask it, how do you think is this policy a good policy? Should we be asking for more help here or pushing more effort to the other team? I do all kinds of things to try and see what an impartial reader might think is fair for workload or distribution or strategy, and build a better work environment, taking its thoughts in mind, because my experiences are now much more limited than the computers.
Jason?
I think, my gut says you promote them because, we're not riding around in horse and buggy anymore either, right? So, if I had an employee that thought that's how they were going to decide to get around to their meetings all day instead of using a vehicle, then I would probably question some of their judgment a little bit. I think here comes the ethical question: are they passing it off as work that they've done themselves, or are they being open and transparent with how they've arrived at some, how they've created some of this work or generated? So, those are the kind of questions that I would probably ask. But it, like it's being said multiple times, right? The tech is here, and I think it's going to be more about how we use it as a tool, not how we use it to replace human beings, right?
John, what do you think?
Well, thanks for asking. When I was going through my soul-searching time of what is AI, this picture came into my head of, imagine when you hired a guy to chop down your tree in front of your house. And it's back in Jason's horse and buggy days here, where he just grabs a saw and just starts, going at it. And he's working hard and sweating and everything. And then someone else comes along and says, you know what? They're like, there's new technology to do that a little faster. Like we can actually there's this thing called a chainsaw now where we can use gasoline power to chop down that tree. And all of a sudden, he's like, watch this, and does another one. And then the other guy's, well, the person hired me to do it. Like, I'm supposed to chop down the tree, so I think it's my duty to chop it down myself. Meanwhile, the owner's like, the one that hired them to do it is like, I don't care how you do it. You can use anything you want. Just get the stupid tree down. And that's all I care about. And then, so then the person that's using the faster tool now comes to say, if you want more of these things down, I can do it. I can do it faster. I can do it cheaper. And I can, do more of them. And so everyone actually benefits. The job gets done, maybe even gets done better, gets done faster, cheaper. And so everybody can profit from that. So that was the analogy that I had is if these tools are helping us do more work and get more done, I think both the worker benefits and the employer benefits.
Those are great answers. I'm going to throw one more wrinkle on this question out there and see if anyone wants to pick it up. How do you build the trust and communication within an organization or a workplace to make sure you can have those conversations in the right way, where people aren't feeling as if they're at risk if they reveal their innovation, or where they feel as if they can talk about how they'd like to be using AI in the course of their work? Jason, I see you nodding. I feel like you've got something smart to say on this. No pressure.
No, it's a culture thing, right? And that's an individual, that's an individual kind of case-by-case scenario. Like, how are you fostering that kind of culture of trust and openness and transparency in your own organization? Part of that, I feel like you could benefit by if your employees understand that you've got kind of the policy around the use of artificial intelligence, right? If it's clear that, we know it's out there, we know it's a tool, we'd like to, and I'll talk about this probably later when you ask me the government stuff, the local government stuff, but how are you auditing and keeping track of the prompts by which you're generating information, right? So if somebody has to go back and look at it, you want to make sure that the prompts that you're utilizing aren't biased in themselves, right? Kind of we're hinting at that in your presentation. So it's kind of how it doesn't replace the ability, or it doesn't replace the requirement to have kind of this policy foundation in place in your organization. So
I think the leaders have to take the lead on that, because I think the worker, like anybody on staff or contractors, will probably be using the tool. I love Ben's stat about how the younger generation, 18 to 34, they're already using it all the time. And so if you are setting a culture where people are talking about it, then at least it gets it out in the open and people aren't whispering about it, having meetings after the meetings, or, hey, let me show you some, and then no one really knows if it's ethical. So I think leaders have to both understand AI, what it's all about, and then start to apply it together, and then have conversations about how to do it, and then it takes it out of the dark and into the light. And I think that's the leader's job.
That's a really good point, John. I've got a theory of organizational behavior that things in organizations either happen because of or in spite of the formal leadership of the organization. And if you don't lead people to embrace the change and get on it, they're going to do it in spite of you, but they're going to feel as if they're rebelling by doing it, instead of feeling as if they're getting their oar in the water and pulling the organization in the right direction. Ben, do you want to expand a little bit on the question, maybe with a bit of a focus around as an IT lead in a company, how do you make sure these conversations are happening and that people understand what the security risks, for example, the technical risks are when they go and use a tool that might or might not be secure or that might create exposure for the company? How do you manage those kinds of issues?
Yeah, for sure. We are probably not doing enough, to be honest. We've tried to be in front of it, and like I said, we did a lunch and learn series. We've got some documentation on our intranet. We are trying to discuss uses within the company with teams, with the Copilot coming out. We're going to trial that with a small group of people and take our time with it and share the results and try and get a training program in place. The opportunity costs of not paying attention to it are huge, and the risks are huge. Like, no question, you need to take a leadership role in communicating with people what's okay, what's a good idea, but we're also feeling this out together a little bit, and you got to be honest about that. My wife works at the local college, and I remember 6 months ago she shared a story about how they were ready to shoot down a service proposal because when the RFPs came back, that somebody commented that they had GPT help write it, and they thought that was a big detriment. And in 6 months, the tone has totally changed. Now they're doing workshops for the teachers there about how to best utilize it and communicate good practices to students and all that. It's changing fast.
Jason, let's touch on local government or government more broadly a little bit. What do you see as the possibilities and the risks when it comes to using AI in the service of government, whether that be in terms of consultation and engagement, or delivering services more efficiently, or expediting permitting for businesses and housing and things of that nature? What do you see as the possibilities, and what are some cautionary notes we should be aware of when we think about both the risk and the pace of adoption?
Yeah, so I think all of the above. I think there's possibilities in all of the examples that you mentioned, and they're happening already. We've got, in Canada, we were a little bit slower than some of our counterparts down in the U.S., mostly because we're legislated a different way. I think there's a lot more autonomy in the United States with cities and the kind of things that they can do. But we're seeing some pilot projects start up here in British Columbia with looking at permitting, and in specific, they haven't got to the point where they're completely granting permits or even doing plan checking or any of that stuff automated. But they are looking at using that generative chatbot kind of model where you're asking, and the public is asking questions about what can I do on my property? Can I rezone it? Can I put a coach house on it? Can I put an apartment building on it? I can, these are the kind of things that they're kind of using. And we get, cities get thousands and thousands of inquiries, which all have to be answered by a human being. And we generate huge kind of data sets. Our zoning bylaws are large and complex, and we had a rezoning last night that was for a 36-unit apartment building right next to another apartment building that was mostly seniors, and a lot of them came out, and some of the first comments from some of these some of the seniors who are getting up is, I just don't understand all of this information. I don't understand what we're really talking about. I'm just worried, about traffic, and I'm worried about, what's going to happen when this building goes up next to me, and I don't know what all these rules are and what you guys are talking about. And so if we can utilize the tool to make that easier and make it more understandable and deliver that in plain language, that's not something cities are generally great at. And so I think there's a benefit there. I think, again, the ethical and legislative and legal and regulatory challenges are going to be interesting for cities to overcome. And again, it's going to go back to that auditing the prompts, auditing what the information that we're feeding into the artificial intelligence systems, because cities have a huge impact. And local governments have government in general has a huge impact on people's lives, residents' lives, and you want to be damn sure that whatever you're delivering back out to them is accurate and would withstand any challenge by an ombudsperson, human rights code, freedom of information, privacy protection. So I think those are all really interesting things, but I think you're going to start to see with these pilot projects where we end up.
John, you've got a user interface, kind of user workflow background and experience. One of the things that often occurs to me when I think about the use of AI or the use of technology in the delivery of government and government services is, in some ways, the widening disconnect between the expectation of what the user can get from a business that's able to move quickly and doesn't have those constraints that Jason rightly identified. The level and speed of service and automation, the ability to do things online, the ability to do things in a matter of minutes or seconds that folks are used to from dealing with businesses versus the sometimes very different experience of government. The example that you and I have talked about before is if you were to incorporate a company today, you could come up with a name and a URL that are available using ChatGPT in a matter of seconds. You could write a business plan in a matter of minutes. You could build a website fully integrated in a day. It would take you 26 days to check whether that name is available using Government of British Columbia Corporate Registry. So for you as someone who specializes in user interface, can you expand a little bit on kind of how the almost the impatience of the end user becomes a factor going forward?
Boy, that gets political. Boy, yes. I mean, slow. I have such a intolerance to slow, but that's in my own heart, right? Like I want everything to be right now. That's just being a millennial. But maybe I've been conditioned to do it, and maybe I'm just impatient. But yeah, when I think of all how long things take to get through systems and paperwork, and I mean zoning, and you have a real estate project that you're trying to get through in another city, and yeah, I mean it's frustrating. But I mean, obviously, people have to do their due diligence. We can't have the algorithms taking over everything. There's still a need for human fact checking and humans interacting. The tension that I feel in, so just background context, we have a website platform, but we also create websites. So we have clients, people that are using our platform to build their own sites, but also, they expect help from us, like support tickets and stuff. And one of the things that our clients love about us, our Google reviews talk about, is that you get a human being on the other line when you call. And when you have a tech question, or you don't just want more tech answers, sometimes you want just a human being to kind of make it simple for you. So we've identified that we can't just switch to chatbots, and it's going to slow things down a little bit because our clients appreciate so much just another human on the line. But then I say, like, well, what if that human has to sleep, or what if that human has kids, and what if that human wants to do something? Are you willing to get help right away, even if it's not a human? So this is the tension, and many small business owners, you're probably feeling it too. Do we want to give that human touch that wows and cares for our customers? Or we want to replace it with automation that can be done 24/7 and never has to sleep. So that's to take it out of the political realm and just bring it into my world. We're trying to figure out how do we deliver maximum value to our clients without losing that human touch that they value. So this is the tension.
Can I jump in really quick too, because you just made me think about it. So the human touch and the importance of having that information. So if you're going through an automated permitting process and you ask the chatbot, is this technically possible? And let's put it in perspective. I won't use live fire examples, but let's say you've got an elderly couple that's lived in a home for. That home's been in their family. It's a little farmhouse, and they've been in their family for hundreds of years. And you've got the property acquired next to them is acquired by a large developer with an interest to knock down that, but he needs to amalgamate those properties. And the decision comes before a chatbot, and they say, "Is it all technically possible?" Absolutely. And then you listen to the story of the people who lived there for many, many years in that neighborhood, and you say, is it technically possible? Perhaps, but it's not just, there's other factors that weigh in on some of those decisions, right? Is it the right thing for the neighborhood as a whole? Is it the right thing for these folks? Are there alternatives? Maybe, but yeah, probably, but I still think we're not there yet in terms of completely eliminating all city councilors.
So we're not
that we'd want to
with robots quite yet.
Not yet, and we don't manage the corporate registry, so you can say all the things you want about how long it takes to.
The minister who does promise she's going to fix it, but it was more than 26 days ago.
Yeah, I'm here to represent small business and AI, not government bureaucracy. So no further questions about political process, please.
Ben, do you have any thoughts on that?
Just don't be guilty about being impatient and expecting more faster. I fully support the TikTok generation and getting to the point immediately. There's a real fear that now we have speed up on YouTube and everyone's watching at double speed, and then you listen to somebody talk in real life and suddenly we're all going to find each other boring. I do worry a bit, but man, the faster the better, I think. I did want to add one thing, just that when you're going through evaluating technical things and there's supporting documents, just know that in general, these AIs are significantly more accurate when you do provide them like codified exact documents to cite for further information, as opposed to just being part of the general knowledge base. You can ask it questions about, say, the building code, and it will try and answer now with some degree of hesitation, and you should talk to an expert, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually give it a document that outlines the section of the code that's relevant and ask it to interpret it, it'll get much more refined. So know that there's more possible. All the same caveats about talking to experts and being careful and not trusting everything it tells you, but it does get better.
That might be a good point to make about how dumb the AI actually is at this point. It only works with the information that you give it, and so it's not thinking for itself. That's maybe 10 years from now we can have everyone back together and see all the things we've learned about what's happened. But the machines only works with data, right? That's all. You just give it a whole bunch of data. The more data it has, you read the whole internet, you're going to know how to put certain phrases together, certain bits, and all sorts of takes on stuff. But at the end of the day, it's not thinking. It's just regurgitating stuff that it's given and then spits it out. And that's why you could keep saying, like, no, I don't like that. Send it back, regenerate. And it has no feelings. But you can make fun of it, and it'll always serve you the best, right? So that's a good point that Ben makes, is that we don't have thinking agents, that's still a human thing. And we can talk a whole thing about ethic about that, or the future of that. But AI is dumb. ChatGPT is dumb. It only is just taking what it's given and spitting something new out.
The thing is, we're actually recording this on video, and we're going to run it through AI. And when the AI hears John say that it's dumb, I'm just saying that in the future that might make you a target.
No prompts for you.
So, Jason, I think you brought up a really interesting point around the importance of bridging between sort of the AI-driven side of the equation and the very human side of the equation. I think that's extraordinarily relevant in government and in the kind of cultural and political realm, but it's also really, really important for managers to have literacy around what AI can and cannot do, whether that's because they're managing people, whether it's because they're managing resource trade-offs, ethical trade-offs. So for each of you in your respective organizations and spheres of influence, what do we need to do in order to make sure that people, especially, frankly, a generation that is an older generation that might not be the first to jump into using AI, what do we do to make sure that people have the skills and the literacies to lead in an era of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, it's a lot about education, and it's also like, how do we democratize that education, make it available to as many people as widely as possible across all the whole spectrum of folks, different demographics, and because I don't anticipate it going away, and it's but how we use it, and it's not generating the data set just yet, but it sort of is, because as more data is put out into the world, and that data is being backfed, it's kind of like a feedback loop where it's going to, if not already, it's going to start using AI generated data to generate its own data, right? So it's here and it's coming, and that's going to happen. How do you work to remove bias from the data that you're feeding it, that's generating information from? How do you ensure that the content that it's generating and the data that it's generating is not, kind of furthering or expanding, widening the gap between folks who, are struggling every day to kind of get by right now? And I don't know how you do it, but I know it's going to be really important that we do, and I think it goes back to getting the tools in the hands of folks as widely as possible, and then getting good, unbiased education available as quickly as we can, because I think that the longer we don't do that, the more at risk we are kind of having people fall behind.
Ben?
This is, I mentioned earlier, a democratizer of information. Everybody, big and small, is going to be using these same models. My fear is about the models becoming monopolies, where you've got these data silos and suddenly you're not able to feed from all the data sets. You just are feeding from your own inputs. And maybe ChatGPT first to market, suddenly GPT's getting all the inputs and learning faster than the rest, and we end up with a mega monopoly. That's a fear. Or just the echo chambers that you might end up with, where you've got one model that will tend to address things one way and one that won't for others. The image generation and video generation, there's all kinds of nefarious markets for those where we're going to see some differentiation start to come, and that stuff is scary. But no, I think this is, at this point, good news for the little guy, because we're going to be using the same tools they are, with a lot of the same horsepower for the first time. But regionally, you might have concerns about, like, you're not always going to tell it, I live in Chilliwack and I work at this company, blah, 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 when you give it that background. So it's making a lot of assumptions if you're just using that blank slate model. And what should those assumptions be when this is a model that's supposed to work all around the world? Hard to say. You ask for a picture of somebody, it's the most obvious example. What kind of person should it be? Does it assume you live in US, or does it take a representative sample from the general population, or what? You ask for electricians or computer technicians today, you get a bunch of men, mostly white. That depends on the model, though, and people are not sure how best to do that sort of stuff. So lots to be shaken out in the next year or more.
John?
I know panels, we tend to just drift on questions. Can you go back to the original? Was it about education and what can we be aware of?
How do we make sure that we're training leaders in the workplace or in organizations to understand the implications of AI and be good leaders in that context?
Yeah. So that goes back to my original crisis. This is an amazing tool. It's helping me at work. What is it? I mean, I grew up watching Terminator. I still wonder, that's a rated R movie. Why did my parents let me watch it at such a formative age? But I realized that those robots that come, armed robots come that start shooting humans, is a huge connection point when I think of AI and robots. So it's a narrative that my past is telling me about artificial intelligence, and so I had to confront that and say, by using ChatGPT and image generation and any AI tool, am I part of Skynet bringing in the robots? They're going to wipe us all out. And I had to come to that point of okay, what is AI then? And I realized that there's really two kinds of AIs, which is the general AI, which is the stuff that is part of science fiction, that dystopian narrative that I was believing with Terminator and Ex Machina and all these epic sci-fi movies that many of us, WALL-E would be another one, a less violent one, for sure. But I had to realize that kind of AI is still not here yet, and there's debate on whether it ever will be here or when it's coming. You can find talking points on formerly Twitter and now X. You can find lots of different perspectives on AGI, but narrow artificial intelligence is part of our society all the time. And I realized that if I'm a Netflix person, and I'm supporting AI, right? Because Netflix takes a bunch of data. When people watch this show, they often like this show as well. You binge here, you're probably going to binge there. Netflix wants to keep us, so they're going to recommend other bingeable shows. That's AI doing it. If you're an Amazon Prime subscriber, then you're probably a pro AI as well, I would hope, because Amazon says, when people buy this product, they need this cord. Or if they buy this, they often buy this. So they're pairing it together. How do they know that? Because Amazon has tons of data of how people purchase things, and so that's using AI. Another one would be a Google search. Any Google searchers here? You're a fan of AI. It's the safe AI. It's just the AI that says, when people are looking for this, then they input these terms. These tend to be the best websites that we recommend. When we recommend this website to those people, they tend to spend the most time there. They find what they need, and they move on. They're happy Google clients. That's all AI using that. ChatGPT would be doing the same. So I think the education part of just learning, by using these tools, I'm not a fan, I'm not ushering in the new age of the darkness of the end of humanity, right? I'm just using some tools that are already in the culture that we live and breathe in already. So The education part, I think we just have to, as business leaders, we have to know what we're talking about when we're talking about AI, and then we can start to play in the stuff that's safe and not controversial, and let the Illuminati figure out the rest.
So John does not think that war with the machines is inevitable. Gentlemen, is war against the machines inevitable? On a scale of 1 to 10, should we be training? Should we be getting our Terminator fighting boots on?
So on a biological time scale, an evolutionary time scale, we've had the ability to doom ourselves for 100 years or less. It seems almost inevitable something will. It might be that AI is the one thing that can recognize we're a danger to ourselves and others and maybe save us. That's one way of thinking about it. It is immensely powerful and immensely dangerous, and the threat, I think, is very real. But so are some other ones. This is the only one that might have a silver lining. We're not going to save ourselves with weaponized COVID or something. So, yeah, is humanity going to be here in 100,000 years? I kind of doubt it, to be honest. I don't know what's going to be the thing that does it, but maybe this one saves us.
Jason, John Connor, Lum.
Yeah, no, it's okay, because last night I was getting ready for this question, so I asked ChatGPT, and I'll actually tell you, it said, here's the answer. So I asked, should I be worried? Is Skynet coming? And is AI going to usher in the end of humanity? And this is it. So that was about 9:30 last night. This was the answer. I'll read it. It said, shh, just go to sleep, Jason. Don't worry. So I think it's probably fine. I think it's probably totally fine.
So, perhaps the existential threat is overstated, but there are certainly significant economic and workforce disruptions happening as a result of AI. People often talk about skills bias job dislocation, which is a nerdy way of saying that some jobs are more at risk than others. Why don't we talk a little bit about how AI is driving change in the job market, both in terms of jobs that might change or might not exist anymore, but also new jobs that are being created. Ben, some of those new folks might be hired by you. So do you want to start us off on a positive note?
Statistically, I've heard some studies. I think McKinsey did one that said 75% of the impact is going to come in the areas of customer service. I believe it was R&D and marketing are the three fields that 75% of the impact is going to be there, they say. I think there's going to be opportunities coming out of that too. It's not just going to be downsizing. Imagine, for better or for worse, imagine a world where your marketing team is figuring out how to pull your Facebook photo and Photoshop we won't use that term anymore, but we'll Photoshop on that new shirt they're trying to sell you onto your profile photo and make that part of the ad. Pretty invasive. Maybe we don't go down that road, but new avenues for advertising, dynamic, customized content for you. I could go on all day with where it would affect every other space. So there's going to be enormous opportunities, and having the AI here doesn't make it happen. It's going to take people to do it. If I were in those spaces, I would be excited about the opportunities, not afraid about the downsizing. It's the people that aren't afraid that should be afraid, right? If you take this stuff seriously, you'll be the one leading the way. It's the ones that aren't here today that probably should be.
John?
Well, that's a good point. I think to be afraid of it, I've talked to so many people about this now, and it comes up at Thanksgiving dinner, and it comes up at work, and it comes up all over the place. Like I said, dads and school pickup are going to be talking about AI and stuff. So everyone's talking about it, and I think I've learned now to realize it's often a disposition of the heart that makes people either embrace it or not. It's same with any technology, actually. The curve is, if when the new iPhone comes out, like we've seen the ads, the titanium new iPhone, some people are lined up at the Apple store ready to take it. Some people are kind of sitting back and saying, well, let's see, maybe my phone is fine, and maybe I don't need it right now. And maybe I should just hug my dad instead of getting a new phone. I don't know. But then 20% will be like, no, I'll never, ever darken the doors of an Apple store. I'm so happy with my inferior technology. I'll never do it. And that's just the way humanity is in our hearts, regardless of whatever it is. And so I think it's no surprise to me that you see major AI enthusiasts that are willing to take time out of their day in the middle of the time just to jump on a panel and talk about AI and loving it. People that will show up, and then people will just be like, you know what, I'm never going to do it. And then there's probably a bunch of people that are watching. But I think when it comes to this, because the technology is changing so fast, that those who are falling behind or even holding back are going to get further and further behind as things move faster and faster. So even just to learn a little bit about what we're talking about when we're talking about AI, just to try the tools, to open up your ChatGPT account or go onto Bing Chat or whatever it is, like you got to do something. Even today is out of your comfort zone by stepping out. If you're not here and you're doing something else and you're one of those resistors, you're going to fall further and further behind. And that's when the disruption happens, right? The market will move on. The market will become faster. The market will become more efficient. And your business and you and the people that you represent will fall further and further behind. And that's the part that concerns me. But that's the history of the workforce. That's capitalism, right? So in that sense, I don't have as much compassion for those people anymore because they're just falling behind. And capitalism has a system for dealing with people like that. I won't say what the system's called because that sounds awful, but it's just true. It's just true. The government can only bail, people out so much, right? So now we're political again. I did it. I'm sorry. That was mine. That was on me.
Jason, what do you think about the workforce implications of AI?
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because I've been doing work outside of now with my government hat off. I've been doing a lot of work in the manufacturing space, and just like automation in the manufacturing space. One of the pleasant surprises, I guess, that I've seen in some of that work is that any of the Industry 4.0 kind of groups that were adopting new manufacturing and automation onto the shop floor, they were really proud to give examples about how it didn't replace the plant floor work. It was opening up other opportunities, and a lot of them who had adopted automation had ended up hiring additional folks onto the plant or into the particular organization. So I think there's opportunity there. I think herein lies an obligation for government actually to look at what we're doing around upskilling, retraining, the opportunities that are going to be created to ensure that folks who may be at risk of perhaps losing their job and the thing that they're doing, have other opportunities that we can assist them with. And I think that's part of the responsibility of not just government but us as a society. I think that's the kind of place that we pride ourselves in living in. Is a place where we don't want to see a whole bunch of people left behind. It's why we're proud of the social systems that we have in our country, and it's kind of this trust that we've built that we don't want to have a bunch of people left behind. Because the fact of the matter is when we do leave those folks behind, it doesn't just avail us of our responsibility. We just pay in different ways, right? Our society pays in different ways, right? So there's still that cost to us all as a whole, right?
Very interesting. And we already got you on this one. But, okay, so let's take a bit of a turn. I've been looking at all the questions coming through on Slido, and Tom and Wim are definitely winning the most questions submitted sweepstakes. Anybody else who wants to go to slido.com, enter #chamber. You can also ask questions. There's some really, really good ones on here, some of which I've already been rolling into questions. But let's talk a little bit about using AI for the first time. In fact, let's just take a sample of the room. Folks, there's no reason to be embarrassed if the answer is no. Has everyone in this room used ChatGPT? Put your hand up if you use ChatGPT. So generally, a majority of people have used it, have played with it. The other day, I was at a conference and we had somebody from Microsoft there, and it was a very detailed conference around agricultural innovation. And he was asked, "What's one thing that you can do?" And his advice to every single person in the room was just use ChatGPT. Just use it. Just experiment with it. So in that spirit, given that most folks in the room have used ChatGPT and those that haven't are likely to go away and play with it or start using it right now as we're speaking on their phones, here's a great question from Wim. What makes a great AI prompt? And let's use this to expand a little bit on, for everyone in this room who's used ChatGPT, when these folks go home or ignore us for a minute and play on their phones, what's something new that they could be doing in ChatGPT or in any kind of AI that you've discovered that's going to give them a leg up, a path forward, or at least a few minutes of entertainment?
By far, my favorite use is learning things. It is, I don't know if I would be going to college, honestly, if I was in a community where I already had good social connections and I was starting from scratch again. You can find catered answers to everything you want. Universities are obviously going to adapt to that. It just takes a little bit of time, but that's my favorite use. Learn a skill, any skill, like even skills where it doesn't have real control. Have it coach you through playing piano or something is going to be a little harder, but even there you can explain like, I'm not really sure if this is feeling right. Should I hold my posture like this or not? It'll work with you on that. And then any sort of troubleshooting of anything, fix the car, the sink, or figure out your new home reno project. Defer to experts again where it's appropriate. But if you got a clogged sink, or I've had it brainstorm ideas to avoid blisters while I'm doing yard work, and simple things like that. There's very approachable incremental steps that are going to help in everyday life for everybody.
I need a timer, but I can jump in on. But I could go for literally 30 minutes on this. I'm just scanning the room to see if any of my extended family here. I married a big Abbotsford family, but I don't think they're in Chilliwack, so I can share this without any ramifications. My wife and I just celebrated 10 lovely years together, and I wanted to give her some sort of, expression of my love for her. And so I just started going to ChatGPT and started saying about our three daughters' names and places we had traveled, and where our wedding was, and things I appreciate about her. And I just said, can you write a poem for me that rhymes, because it has to rhyme. That's the only kind of poetry that I'll appreciate, the rhyming poem. And it gave this beautiful poem. And then I took it and I hand wrote it into a card so she wouldn't know. She didn't ask, right? And then people judge me when I tell this, and I'm like, is Hallmark not doing the same but unpersonalized? How many of you ever bought a Hallmark card for their spouse showing how much they love her, a Christmas card, Valentine's even? Well, I had a ChatGPT AI card. And that was the best prompt because she loved it. Now, if you see her anywhere, please don't tell her that it was AI. It may come out at some point. I'm very willing to source my work, but it was very effective, especially the handwriting part. So to answer the question, what's the best prompt? Something romantic for your spouse. That's the nicest thing you could do. The next best thing would be something for your business, to grow your business, which also feeds your family and grows your business. So, coming from the marketing side, I'll just give one example. There could be many, but I would probably say there's a chiropractor in the room here, and you would first start by giving it some context. So I would say, I'm a chiropractor in Chilliwack. These are my kind of patients that I like to work with. I would like to think of some ideas of let's say a blog post that I could write. So it'll give you like 12 different ideas. You could, if you don't like the 12, you say, give me 12 more, and it won't be offended again. So now you have like 24 ideas, and that's potentially 2 years worth of content. But let's just say you only want a year worth of content of blog posts. So you're going to take your favorite 12, and then take the first one and say, write a blog post about this topic. Let's say it's back pain, and you're starting in the new year in January. So it's going to write a blog post about back pain in January, and then you take that blog post then, and you can put it on your website, and then you could say, given this blog now that I have, can you make, because it's a month worth of content, you're going to want one blog a month, and you say, give me 4 social media posts about this, and then it's going to give you little things that you can put on Instagram or Facebook, and post that, schedule that, and then you could say, if you're really ambitious, you could write a TikTok video about, pick one of the posts, and then it will write a 1-minute TikTok video, and then you get in front of your camera, and you record it. One of the cool things about the AI is if you have a script right there, you can record it off of your phone, and it will actually do eye contact correction. So you're reading from the script, the camera's here. What it'll do is it'll adjust your eyes so that you're looking right into the camera. It's a beautiful app. And so that's how AI would work. Just one example. So now now I have my first month of content, right? I would take the second point, right? It gave me 24 ideas. I'm taking the best 12, and now I'm on February's post. So I take that idea for February, put it in, it spits out a blog. I can edit it, I can change it, whatever I want. I can say try again. Then I get 4 social media posts out of that and another TikTok video style. Record that, post it, and now I'm into March, right? How long does that take it? Like literally, as long as I can talk it longer than it takes to actually do it. So that's an example of how you use prompts. Remember, I started by saying, we're very clear that it'll assume that you're a chiropractor in anywhere, but you're just gonna say, I'm a chiropractor in this area, so it could be plumber, could be carpenter, could be teacher, could be anything, and I want to do this, and so please give me that. You don't have to say please even. But I'm still very polite with my...
Now he's polite to the robot.
He's backtracking.
He's sucking up to the robot.
That's so true.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, I am a walking contradiction with AI, like we all are too, right? But that's kind of how I would start to use it from a marketer perspective and a romantic perspective.
I love it. Jason, what about you?
Scheduling. So you all saw me arrive late today, and obviously I am horrible at managing the 5 calendars of work that I get myself into all the time. My good friend Chris is nodding his head with a way too big of a smile on his face because he had to try and help me schedule before. And so for me, helping with scheduling has been incredibly important and helpful. It's not quite there yet, as you can see, but it's getting closer. Now, you've triggered or prompted another observation, I guess. And so AI is going to free us up to have all this extra time on our hands, and it's going to be amazing because we're going to be so efficient. And so what do we do with that? So traditionally, what human beings did with that time on their hands, and when you look at other cultures, is that's what they did. They created, they perpetuated new culture, art, they created. So where does AI fit into that? So right now there's a project that's happening with Schubert's unfinished symphonies, and they're looking at where were the unfinished symphonies, and it's been analyzed, multiple data points.
Are they going to finish them?
Yeah, and that's it. So there's a company.
I thought I was being funny.
No, there is a company going through, and they're going to finish them. So who then gets the credit for that? Is it the machine that created it? Is it the original, creator of the content? How do you manage that? Rembrandt, the next Rembrandt, that's an example. And that 374 data points looking at multiple paintings, and they've created the next painting. So is it a Rembrandt? Are we citing Rembrandt as source material for it? Is it missing the point altogether? Because human beings are supposed to be doing, like, what makes life worth living? It's like art, it's culture, it's the things that we're creating that's coming from inside our souls, the intangible things, right? Is my kid going to go to school and prompt, and he's 3, right? So he's going to go to like preschool and do a bunch of prompts and come home and give me this perfect piece of art? Or is it going to be like what yesterday when he came home and he's like, Dad, it's an owl. And I was like, that's a beautiful elephant, or whatever. And he's like, but the point is, it's like that came from him. It was a manifestation of his, his love and what was inside of him and the thing he wanted to create at the time. So what are the trade-offs? What are the things that we're giving up? And I don't know. And so the implications of AI on arts and culture are a big deal to me. That's I guess, and we're not there yet. So
I'm going to cheat by answering my own question on this one here with 2 fun things you can do. One fun thing and one business-like thing you can do. So if you have a paid ChatGPT account, it now has a fantastic DALL-E integration, or you can just use DALL-E. Play with DALL-E, D-A-L-L-E, for generating art. You talked about Rembrandt. The other day I was playing with DALL-E, and I happen to like Rembrandt and Salvador Dali. And Piet Mondrian and Jackson Pollock. So I asked DALL-E to give me a piece of art that combined the styles of those 4 artists and included clocks, because I was thinking of Dali's melting Gouda clock. And it produced 4 options of beautiful pieces of art. So if you just want something fun to look at, you can just produce new art that has heretofore never existed using generative AI, and you'll only see more of that with more realism. The other business application I really enjoy is I use GPT for business planning all the time. Whether it's, and that comes back to that use in the workplace, but what I'll do, for example, is I might have writer's block on a project that I need to get started on. I'll give it 3 sentences. It'll give me something to edit against. Or I'll use it to write entire business plans section by section where I might not agree with its initial theory. But once I use web-enabled GPT to generate a business plan, I can then, as you develop your ability to prompt it, you can then say, now change the assumptions as follows. You can ask it, you can ask it to generate a plan. It might scour the internet, come up with a set of assumptions. You can then dial in a correction of those assumptions. You can ask it to become more pessimistic, more optimistic, and that can allow you to think through your own plan, whether it's for a new business or a project, and it becomes effectively a conversation partner as you try to test your own assumptions and do planning work. And I think that's hugely value added in the workplace. I'm going to go to another question off of Slido, and then I'm going to give Leanna a heads up that we're going to get the microphones out. And I haven't seen too many people staring at their phones, which means we still have your attention. We won't try to push that too far, but I want to make sure we get a chance to get some questions from the audience, especially because I've discovered there are people in the audience that are actually much smarter than any of us on stage, or at least me. So from Slido, I know there are some educators in the room who are thinking about the implications of AI in an educational context. When we think back to the advent of, folks may remember Turnitin.com, the check for plagiarism. John touched on that. So for an educator, does it matter if kids don't know how to write an essay anymore? Does it matter today in the era of typing? We don't really focus on teaching handwriting anymore. Are we going to focus on teaching long-form writing anymore? Should we be, at least actually all of us on stage are parents, as parents, should we be worrying about AI displacing the need to have a certain skill set that has been what the education system tested before, or should we be more focused on making sure that the education system is teaching people the new skills that they will need in order to exist in an era of generative AI? So teaching them how to prompt instead of teaching them how to write an essay, as an example. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel bad for a lot of my colleagues that are educators and that are working in the education system, because I think, I'm not sure that they as educators are given all the tools that they require to deal with and then educate youth on just simple things. Like, we haven't figured out how to use social media properly. We haven't taught young people how to discern what is fake news and what is authentic information. We haven't taught young people how to fact check very well. So now to layer in we're going to teach you how to use generative AI as well. I think that's a unrealistic, expectation. But I think, we should be seeking out really good examples of it and trying to highlight and empower and build. And I think we should be talking to, you shouldn't be asking a local government politician about this. We should have an educator on the stage saying, what are you seeing and how do you feel like you can be best supported to help kids? Because, man, we had enough challenges in schools with teaching kids just how to be nice human beings to each other. Never mind how to prompt, AI and machines into it. Back to the basics, Just don't be a bully. I think those are
Don't be mean to the robots.
Don't be mean to us, the robots. Yeah. No.
Ben, what do you think?
The take-home essay might be dead, or we might just raise the bar a whole lot, and with the expectation you're going to be using these tools. But the ability to communicate, paper might just be the intermedium that is required to properly collate everything and vet it and give feedback to students. You can't do personal interviews with everyone, but learning how to communicate, how to get to the point, how to tell a story, how to entertain, those are all still important skills. I'm very worried about, I'm not very worried because you'll deal with it, but you're going to get really impressive resumes and then meet someone face to face and realize there's just nothing there, right? This is going to happen. So there's still a need to learn how to organize and present yourself, and without inflating my ego too much, I can write plenty of corrections all over what ChatGPT gives me. It will get better than me. Like, it's just inevitable. That's the thing. This question will eventually become relevant. No matter how good you are, it's going to get better. But yeah, you need to think on your feet too. So that'll still be relevant. Overall, it is a win for education, though. We just need to figure out how best to take advantage of it. You got like Khan Academy's doing some really cool things with integrations there to you answer specific questions to people as the lecture's going on, and provide feedback as they're in motion with it, and highlight to the instructors that there seems to be a disconnect. There's a certain misunderstanding that is just happening throughout the room in real time. Some really powerful, cool new tools out there. So we're figuring out how to best take advantage of it.
John?
Yeah, I have, my wife is a high school teacher, and we have family at various levels, and I have great empathy for the work they're doing. I mean, the burdens that educators bear right now. I mean, think of November 29th, those of you who know educators, where they sit around being like, I wonder if we could have a major disruption in our system here. I got margin for that. You know, they were already super busy on tight budgets and with more work to do and difficult students and everything. So I have great empathy for them that November 30th, when ChatGPT became public, when it came out, they were just like, I don't have time for this. I thought they would by spring break, to be honest with you. And I remember thinking, like, asking my wife, like, are there policies coming out and stuff? And nope, nothing yet. So I thought, well, by the summer, they'll have some meetings. And then so I'm asking various people in education, has anyone said anything yet about how to deal with AI and ChatGPT? And nope, nothing. So I have still compassion for them that they're getting these essays and they don't really know what to do with them. Can I trust them? Can people use AI? Should I be embracing it? Should I be rejecting it? And I think that, I mean, the bigger question is education as it is right now running perfectly, even before AI, right? Were we training people as well as we would hope, as they should be? And I think, you know, anybody can study for an exam, cram a bunch of stuff, and then pass a test, and then forget it all later. I'm not sure that the education system was thriving before AI came out, but the model that I think is going to work is if you do submit an essay, you better be able to defend what you've put there. If this is the first time you're ever reading this piece of work that you've handed in, then you're going to be in trouble if you're called to defend it before any kind of accountability, right? You know, you and I, when we studied, there was like three-person classrooms, right? And if you tried to put something out there and you couldn't defend it, you would fail immediately. So if you can't defend point number 2 and the possible rebuttals and possible other perspectives, then you need to go back and think about why you submitted point number 2 in your 3-part essay. And I think that's probably how people get educated, is they think through everything, come to their own conclusion, and they can back it up. So if you're just putting something out there within a 3-second using ChatGPT, you don't know it, you can't back it up, and if you can't back it up, you should fail. Now the problem is, from an educator's perspective, how do you do that in a classroom of 15, 30, or 40, or 300 people? I don't know. And that's why I think maybe the whole system needs to be rethought, and maybe we need to move to more an apprenticeship, internship, something where it's more smaller groups where you can actually get eyeball to eyeball, knee to knee with people and say, why did you submit that? Where did you get that from? Why do you land there? Have you thought it through critically? That's going to take a lot more than the current system can bear, but I think it's the only way forward, and AI exposed that was already what educators should have been doing in the first place.
Very interesting. Why don't we go to a couple of questions from the audience, and then we will get you all back to work. Does anybody have any questions? Leanna with the microphone. We'll bring them to you. Down front, Leanna.
Hi. My question is, sometimes it's like you don't know what you don't know. Like, I was actually really excited when you said that it could generate tables and Excel spreadsheets. where do people who are not they don't have their finger on the pulse of this new tech, where do they go to learn what it can do? Like, I'm sure there's no Facebook group.
Oh, there is. There's lots. Yeah.
Or is there like
YouTube videos. Yeah, lots of stuff like that.
But there's so much content on YouTube. How do you know where is a reliable source or place to go? That's my question.
I have been surprised at how lacking good answers to this honestly are. If you ask ChatGPT for good examples of how to use ChatGPT, it gives you uncharacteristically bad examples, which is a little frustrating. The technology is changing so fast that tools like that don't even know the answers to these questions yet. If you have one of the live ones, like Bing Chat will cite its own search results and come up with some more current but maybe editorialized and somewhat randomly selected content. You can start there. I do go to YouTube, honestly, for almost everything, but the clickbait is through the roof. Everyone knows this is the industry we're all talking about, and so there's a lot of love for content. It's worth your time to just dabble and tinker and see what happens, but it's also changing so fast. Any answer I give you today is going to be wrong in a month. Like literally next week is Copilot for 365 is coming out, and then you have the option to buy that add-on for Excel, for example. I can't talk much about it because I can't get my hands on any early access there at all. I'm going to be, just like you, floundering, trying to find how people are using these tools, what the limitations really are then, and I'll go to YouTube at that time.
And you're an Office user, like you're using Office, and they've already incorporated a lot of that into just the help function and some of their Office 365 stuff, right? So I think Copilot's going to enhance that, and I think you could probably just start with that help function that nobody traditionally ever used ever, and now it's getting, because of its use of artificial intelligence, actually getting quite a bit better in terms of delivering quality answers specific to the product, like Excel or PowerPoint or Word, whatever you're using.
I love that question because I think it represents probably what everybody is thinking, which is you go to something and presenters often want to come at a high level. Now, it turns out that we did a flawless job of presenting it very simply, of course. And I love Ben's presentation to show what can be done. But when it comes on the ground, how do you do it? And that's why if any of you have kids who are wondering, like, what should I do? While so many people are worried, like, what jobs are going to be lost because of AI, I'm seeing like all these jobs that are opening now, like the AI consultant, who's going to walk into a business and walk them step by step through, saying here's some things that can be done. They're going to teach, they're going to apply, and then empower you to learn it. And just by being here and learning about that, you're taking that first step to say, I think I don't know what I don't know now, and I need to learn, or else we're going to slowly lose market share. So encourage your kids to be AI consultants, to teach this, because there's a huge opportunity now in the marketplace to do that. And so I would say the first step is to know what you're talking about, and so just figure out what's the healthy, safe AI, and then what tools do we need, and what problems do we need to solve? Because you notice when the question came up, how should I apply, or what's my first ChatGPT prompt that I should use? We all said something differently based on the problem that we have in our specific industry. So I would say find out what's slow, what's inefficient, and what just do you hate doing that probably a tool can do, and then start with that, and then find the AI tool and an AI consultant to help you.
I would just add dabble and talk to your friends and ask them what they're doing, how they're using it, what they've discovered. Think back to when we all learned how to Google. I was a social media consultant in the early days of social media. People used to pay me to set up a Twitter account. Can you believe that? That's absurd. But it's because I was, as a consultant, your job is to be 5 minutes ahead of the client. So, being just that little bit ahead, developing that little bit of skill, if you think of it from the musical metaphor, knowing how to play scales, like you learn how to prompt, then you learn how to prompt better. If what you do is you just play with it and you use it, you start exploring and realizing how you can use it more effectively, I don't think there's any substitute for just experimenting with it in terms of learning how to use it more effectively and experimenting with it not only in your professional life, but also, in terms of your kind of own personal research endeavors. You're going to find what works and what doesn't. And that's really the best solution I've discovered. Any other questions? In the back, Leanna.
practical difference between the two?
IT support?
Yeah, so the paid version has early access to new features. This includes things like the Dolly integration for image generation, the ability to upload photos. This is in the last week. Now you can upload photos and have it decipher images and understand them, make sense of it. Plugin integration, so the ability to reference websites, parse PDFs, that Wolfram Alpha defer to a standard mathematical model or scientific model for things, that sort of stuff. But again, it's a bit of a playground. I don't think ChatGPT is actually long for this world. I think you're going to be using the tools integrated into your business apps in the long term, and that's where you'll spend the money. For now, it's a fun playground, though. It's really cool. Early access to the version 4 was another one. They had a smarter version come out since the hype a year ago. Yeah.
Any other questions from the audience? Burning questions. Last question. You get to sound really smart. Down front. We'll do 2 questions. We'll answer quickly.
Just a quick question. So AI is wonderful as an enabler, but if you look at the trades, how do you amalgamate the two?
John? Easy question.
Yeah. So I love what Ben said about AI integrated tools. So ChatGPT is just first to market. It's just showing us what AI can do. But what is really exciting is how every entrepreneur, every tool is going to find its application with AI. So whatever you're using now, like what does QuickBooks using AI look like? What does that industry specific software, when they get a hold of what AI is going to do, how's that going to apply? So in the trades, there's going to be, like I know some of my clients are already using it. I don't even care to learn it, just too technical and too industry specific. It would be too much for me to figure out. I just know it has the label AI over top of it, and it's using information to make smarter decisions to help them move more efficient. So I think in the next years, you're going to see tons of new innovations. Microsoft being one of them. It's just the AI is right inside of it. You don't have to go external to it. So be on the watch for that when it comes to the trades. But from a marketing perspective, the trades could be using it for all of your external facing, like if you have to build a website and write a page of website copy, if you need to do an email campaign, if you want to do a promotion to your existing people, if you want to give some tips of the week, a Monday newsletter. In the old days, you'd have to write that on a Sunday, but now you can just get it all out there so that you're staying in front of your customers. And I think no matter what industry you're in, that would be very valuable. So I'm not sure how it works on the site, like on the job site, but I sure know how it works today on all of your external facing stuff. Contracts would be another one. Sorry, I keep going. You gotta just turn my mic off. I think that's probably the best way to do this. But robots will. Writing a contract and then quickly shoot it to your lawyer and say, does this work? Like in the old days, you had to have them write the contract. Now you draft the contract, and what used to take them 10 hours is now just an hour on a billable, even though they'll probably still charge you 5 or 10, but it only takes them an hour.
Jason, Ben, any quick additions on this?
Yeah, in the short term, like laborers, frontline workers are often expected to be the least impacted by this, but it is fun to think about what's possible. I can imagine a world where you strap on your Apple Vision Pro or whatever, and that ChatGPT Vision I just talked about is consuming what you're seeing and telling you how to disassemble that engine, how to deal with those diagnostic codes you're seeing, how to alerting you of safety issues right in front of your eyes you don't see. Like, the sky's the limit. This is easier to say than do, but next 5-10 years, who knows? Like, it could get to the ground level.
I think some of that's happening already. So we're seeing some of that stuff, but the same way a nail gun didn't completely replace the hammer. You're going to see different tools probably start to incorporate some of this stuff. You're going to see. There are 3D printing buildings now, right? And some of the automation that's being built into that kind of stuff, and the autonomy that's being built into some of the tools, you're going to start to be seeing use. There's huge application for training and safety in particular, and I think some of that is happening already. I've seen some of the advanced manufacturers that we're dealing with right now using heads-up display. They're training with Microsoft tools already. They're training with VR headsets. They're generating real-time scenarios by which they're training staff. And so I think there's going to be advances in a lot of that work. But yeah, I think it's not going to anytime soon start replacing skilled trades.
Definitely look up virtual twins and the applications of that. So as an example, you could be wearing VR glasses, AR glasses, and you could basically be looking at a motorcycle that's missing a part, identifying what part is missing, and then 3D printing it on demand, whether that be in a forward deployed, resource industry scenario or a military scenario. There's tons of applications that really just integrate the tech with the trades. We'll go to the last question down front here. I want to make sure you get your question in, ma'am.
Thank you. I'm one of the persons that haven't used AI at all. And the reason is that I don't trust. I'm an immigration consultant, and the future of my clients are on me. So how, maybe I don't know because I haven't used it, but how can I be sure that whatever information, because in internet, there's a lot of information about immigration, and most of it is wrong because it's just internet information. I need to go to the law, to the acts, to the regulations to make sure what I'm telling to my client. So how can I trust? Is it a matter of telling the app or whatever, go to the act, go to the regulations, and just simplify for me this? Is that how it works? Or I will be loaded with information as anybody that goes to internet and make a search about immigration, and it depends in each case. So,
Jason, do you want to go on this one first?
Yeah, so you're talking about complex government legislation, multiple different orders of government involved. I think one of the key things that the government can and needs to do when it's dealing with artificial intelligence is ensure that we have open data sets that are easily available to the artificial intelligence. So they're searching or prioritizing that quality information first and foremost. And that the legislation changes, I'm sure you know. But so you need to be up to date. I mean, even the little old city of Chilliwack has an open data portal where we keep our data frequently and updated and available to everyone for free. So it needs to be open, available, and accessible, and then it needs to be prioritized as the information that the artificial intelligence is using to build whatever data it's returning back to you when you're asking a question. So I think that's the one of the key things that we can ask and expect from government is that open data.
John, any thoughts?
I mean, that's the way it has to go, is the open data. I mean, the systems are only as smart as what they can read. Just an example, I thought we'll take it out of immigration into family legal. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but marriages seem to be falling apart everywhere. And I have a friend that I'm walking through a messy separation. And he's trying to get legal help, and he's calling firms all over saying, "Can you help me? Can I meet with somebody?" And they're like, "Well, we're booking to 2025 now." I'm like, 2025? Like he needs it yesterday, or today or tomorrow. And so imagine if there was a law firm trained in Canadian law to help him on the legal side. I mean, he needs all kinds of other help, but on the legal side of what he's entitled to, and it knew it all, and it had all the different theories and ideas and angles, and he could offer him the best in that situation. And it was always available, and he'd be happy to pay for it, but if it was there 24/7 so that he didn't have to wait till 2025 when his marriage and kids are falling apart in front of his eyes. And so, like, how is that not available? And how has somebody not thought of that yet? And why does he have to wait so long to get good professional help or ideas, or even just black and white? What does the law say?
I'm going to tell you, I'll give him
I have a lawyer in the room who has something to say.
some quick advice.
If you want his contact information, anybody here, I'm happy to give it.
Well, I was going to say some really, really quick advice. If you don't want your marriage to break up, don't let your wife or your husband know that you've been using AI to write the love letters.
That's okay. Yeah,
That's free for you right now. That's just some free.
It may be me. It may be me first that needs it too.
Yeah, I'm very happy, first of all, that you pointed out that the internet is also wrong, because usually when this question gets asked, it's how do I know it's telling me the truth? I'm going to go to a website so I know it's the truth, as if a person's never said the wrong thing to your face before. This is not a new question. Wikipedia, same thing. You can't trust it just by itself. You do need to go to the primary sources. There are variants of GPT technology like Bing Chat, which do actually cite where they're getting their answers from. And so you will be able to find primary sources easier, and that's the answer in this case. There are lots of scenarios where you'd be using this technology where it doesn't need to be right. Either it is just opinion and ideas and you vet them yourself, or you can tinker and try it and modify it as you see fit from there. So there's use cases where that it becomes less of an obstacle. But yeah, in your case, you still have some work ahead of you. You're not going to be out of a job anytime soon. And my brother is a lawyer, and he still refuses to use this, and there's such opportunities here. It kills me every day. So you're not alone.
I know. For me, it's excited, but at the same time, it's like, oh my God, I don't want.
And that's just the nature of change, right? AI is no different than any other change. It's not unique. Change happens. It's how we adapt. It's how we make sure we're ready. I think I saw Leanna give a microphone to somebody back there.
Yeah, hi, I'm Kristen. I've been doing family law and divorce law for 21 years. I'm willing to meet with your friend tomorrow. Actually, I have an opening.
God bless you.
At a mediation adjourn. I personally don't think AI can replace family law. Maybe I'm, hopeful in that regard, overly hopeful. But we're counselors. We're doing everything from child custody to those human nuances, the emotions involved. I just don't know that AI could completely replace that. It turns on a dime. I'm dealing daily with people that are suicidal. The violence. I even have been stalked, if you can believe it. So all the nuances involved, I just am not convinced AI could completely replace that. I'm sure they could replace the drafting, some of the writing, some of the emailing. But anyway, because you brought up family law, I thought I would chime in there. And Leanna has my contact. I'm not joking. I'm available tomorrow to meet with your friend.
Awesome. Thank you. I was worth coming out here to Chilliwack just to hear that.
I just want to comment on that. The human touch is real and important. But we have seen a lot of opportunities come up where there's people that are afraid or nervous about being judged that don't want to talk to a real person, that would rather talk to a virtual therapist that will forget them when the conversation's over. So for some people, this opens new doors, although I don't know if the effectiveness is as good or not. Better than nothing.
I think the bottom line you're hearing is, it's as good as garbage in, garbage out, and figuring out what your use case is. And when you're adapting to the AI coming into your workplace, it's making sure you understand what your value proposition is. As our friend, the family lawyer, has just done a very good job of articulating her value despite the existence of AI. I feel like her law practice is going to be well set up. So what I'll do now, just as we wrap up, is I'll just do a quick round the horn with everyone. Folks, I think most people in the room all come from a business background in one way, shape, or form, or they're in an organization. So guys, I'm going to ask each of you to give the folks in the room one takeaway that they could take back to their organization and mention at the water cooler and sound really, really smart. That they learned something really, really interesting and cool and provocative and insightful that is going to get them promoted or at least keep them ahead of the machines in the race for dominance in their particular sector or place of work. Do you want to go first, Ben?
Yes. Microsoft Copilot for Office 365 is coming out November 1st. The US price has been said to be $30 US per user per month. And you should be able to tell it, here's my data, here's my question, build a dashboard in Power BI, and 10 seconds later have something functional, which I have not succeeded in doing in years of side-of-the-desk attempts. So, geez, if you can get that moving at all, I would love you.
Yeah, try the scheduling functionality out. I think that's one thing. If you can, maybe you're just naturally really amazing at scheduling yourself. But if you're busy, and I've been a small business owner, and you're everything from the janitor to the marketer to the doing the actual whatever you do to deliver what service you deliver in your business. But yeah, try that scheduling, and then just give one more last pitch for AI is not going to be the be-all, end-all. We still need art, we still need culture. That still needs to be, in my opinion, generated by human beings with souls. And, think about if you're just getting perfect, auto-tuned music for the rest of your life, what we would have been missing out on, right? And I know there's folks here who still, who would still appreciate listening to a good record, recorded on old analog equipment, and it will never, AI will never take that away from me or you. So there you go. Well, that's my pitch.
John?
Yeah. Think of this venue that we're in here, all the beautiful humanity that's been expressed, the culture, the art, music. We need this. It's huge. And so I'm certainly never want to be an advocate that we don't need humans. My favorite people are humans, it turns out. Some of them are here next to me.
He also loves robots. So.
I do, and they help me with my humans, figuring it all out. We argue that are we going to fight the robots one day? And I think the robots need to help us figure ourselves out. We got enough conflict. But the one thing, I don't know. We made a tool, an AI tool. So I used to charge people thousands of dollars to help them figure out who's your ideal customer, what's the problem that you solve for them, what's the service you offer, the product, and how do you market that. I charged a couple $1,000 for it. We just designed an AI tool that does it for free now. So it's brandmessage.ai. And so if you want to use that, if you're familiar with a book called Building a Story Brand, it's a marketing framework that I believe is so powerful for getting the attention of your ideal client. And so, we just found a way to democratize that anyone can do it in any small business. It's not a luxury product anymore. Brandmessage.ai, you can just do it for free and get your whole messaging done now right away. So every small business owner should be able to access that now.